Spider-Man 2 just got its second update, bringing a ton of fixes to the game. If you're like me, you've probably had this cube glitch that's been going around, which looks kind of like a default shape that you'd start a project in Blender with. This bug completely ruined the end of the game for me.
You ready? Miles.
It seems like everyone has at least seen one of these bugs by now. The flag in the apartment that's supposed to be a Puerto Rico flag was swapped with I think a Cuban flag, because they look basically the same, which is kind of funny, and that's fixed now too. I think there was like a big thing made about this, so they went ahead and fixed it. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit was touched up a bit, now looking a little more shiny, but with the Spider-Man logo looking a little less bright because it was like brighted up to the max. And all around, the suit looks much better now. This was a pretty small update that's just about everything that it fixed, but we still have some bigger updates coming in just a short while that are going to be bringing us new suits, New Game Plus, and some new features. We might even be getting some DLC. Insomniac's director of community and marketing had already said back before launch that New Game Plus was coming, along with the feature to replay missions, because that's not a thing right now. You'd think that would be pretty easy to implement, something we would get right away, but I believe both of these features, the ability to replay missions and New Game Plus, didn't come for at least a couple of months to the original Spider-Man game. So yeah, it could be at least a few weeks. Insomniac's first Spider-Man game brought us a ton of new suits as well post-launch, so you would assume the same thing would happen here, or at least some new suits to go along with New Game Plus. Like, I was really hoping for the 2099 suit from Across the Spider-Verse, or maybe even a similar Peter Parker suit from the Spider-Verse series, which we did get in that first Spider-Man game. I mean, we have the Noir suit, and it's really awesome looking, don't get me wrong, but it'd be nice to get some of these other unique Spider-Verse animation style suits as well. I'm guessing by the time Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out, we'll get a free update that brings some extra suits in there too. We have the original 2099 suit, which has appeared in the last game and just about any Spider-Man game really, at least any that I can think of, but I'm really hoping we get Miguel's 2099 suit from the Across the Spider-Verse movie at some point. The 2099 suit was already, I think, one of the coolest suits in the Spider-Man series in general, and I think Across the Spider-Verse just added even more to that. Not to mention that if you collected all of the Spider-Bots that were thrown across the city, you got a pretty cool scene featuring Delilah, who was supposed to appear in the last Spider-Verse movie, but didn't, and even mentions Miguel before taking back the Spider-Bots. This is like the same exact portal that they had in the movies, and while I'd like to believe that Miguel could show up in a DLC or a future game, this is probably just an Easter egg for the upcoming Beyond the Spider-Verse movie. I mean, when Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out, like I said, they're probably going to add some more Spider-Verse suits, but they could also do something more with this. Maybe we'll get some missions related to this, I don't know. But I mean, if they're going to do anything with Miguel in the future, I think he deserves his own game. That game would be crazy good. I'm kind of tired of swinging around New York. Getting to go into his world in that like cyberpunk type city would be sick. Insomniac is incredibly good at listening to what everyone wants and listening to our feedback, so if that's a suit that you want to see in the game as well, or anything to do with Miguel in 2099, leave it in the comments. Tell them on Twitter and there's a good chance we'll get something at some point. That's what happened with their first Spider-Man game. Everyone wanted to get the Sam Raimi suit, so they said, here you go, take it for free. Same with like a lot of the other suits they added. They added like at least 10 suits, maybe somewhere around 15. I mean, just now for Spider-Man 2, people already had some issues with how suits looked when they leaked before launch, and they had them fixed before the game even released, which is crazy and not something they even really had to do. As for some new suits that have been confirmed to be on the way into Spider-Man 2, as you might know, Insomniac tasks out a lot of these suits, especially like the deluxe edition suits that we got, to be designed by different artists outside of Insomniac. And we've got some new suits coming that are being designed by Kid Super, a famous artist who was working with some celebrities like the soccer or football player Vinny Jr. to make a suit in his style, and the Formula 1 driver Lando Norris to make a suit with a helmet in his type of thing, and then a biker looking outfit as well. Honestly, none of these suits look necessarily amazing to me, so I'm interested to see how they turn out when they're actually thrown into the game. I think this guy just throws together like a rough draft of the suit basically, and then Insomniac implements it into the game. It'll probably look a little better. The fact that Insomniac Games listens a lot to their audience makes me feel pretty good about some of the features in the upcoming Wolverine game. I think something a lot of us want to see, or I don't know, it could just be me, is something similar to the visual damage you could see Wolverine take back in the Wolverine Origins game, which in this particular way was way ahead of its time, where you would take damage and as Logan regenerates his health, you could see him regenerate. It's really sick, and it's kind of hard to believe this was in a game back then. I don't know if we'll get anything that in-depth, but seeing as how they added some visual damage to the suits in Spider-Man 2 that goes off of your health and fixes itself when you heal, I mean, this is exactly what we want to see in the Wolverine game. Just maybe a bit more visual damage to him himself. And this isn't anything crazy new. I think this was in Amazing Spider-Man 2, maybe even a couple of different other Spider-Man games where you could see the suit be repaired. It'll also be interesting to see whether they lean toward more of an open world, obviously lacking Spider-Man's traversal abilities. It might feel a bit more like a recent Batman game, especially since it's looking like it's set in the city of Madripoor, a pretty big spot in the comics that Wolverine heads to when he's like the last surviving member of the X-Men. They could go with more of a linear route as well, so it'll definitely be interesting to see, but on top of that, there's a good chance that we could get some sort of Spider-Man Wolverine crossover, since Insomniac has said in the past that they'll be taking place in the same universe. I'm surprised that except for the Wolverine suit, they didn't have any type of cameo or hint of Wolverine in Spider-Man 2 to add some extra hype to it, but let me know what you guys want to see in the upcoming Wolverine game. It shouldn't be that far away now since it was set to release sometime after Spider-Man 2. Hopefully we'll see it toward the end of 2024, but it might get pushed all the way to 2025. As of now, it doesn't really have an exact release date. So we know that Spider-Man 3 isn't going to be here anytime soon based off of all of that, at least for not a couple of years, but since there's been a lot of info going around about it, some rumors, and a lot of stuff that was hinted at with the ending, if you have beaten the game, it might be time to click off of the video since we'll be going over some spoilers. For a release date, since the original game came out in 2018, Miles Morales came out in 2020, and now Spider-Man 2 in 2023, plus again Wolverine being released next year, or it could push toward 2025, we're probably not going to see Spider-Man 3 until at least 2027-ish. And that's assuming they don't have another Spider-Man game before then. Obviously, I don't work for Insomniac, so who knows, but we do know that this is likely going to be the final installment to the series, at least on Insomniac's part, since they basically said as much in the post-credits scene where Norman Osborn looks like he'll finally be making his transformation into the Green Goblin, alongside Dr. Octavius, probably to help design his suit and all of that good stuff, but also since the Green Goblin is going to be taking on Spider-Man with all of Spider-Man's new powers, which are crazy, it seems like that's a lot more than the Green Goblin can probably handle, so I imagine they're going to come up with some type of serum to disable Peter's powers or something like that. There was also obviously the introduction to Cindy Moon, who is one of the newer additions to Spider-Man, not debuting until like 2014 as another Spider-Man or Spider-Woman, so now Spider-Man 3 is going to add a third potentially playable character, or maybe between Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3, since Peter Parker is on a hiatus away from being Spider-Man, we'll get a second Miles Morales game where you play alongside Cindy Moon. Or maybe even she'll get her own game altogether, kind of like how Miles did. And if you completed the Flame side missions for Peter Parker, it set up a pretty nice starting point for Carnage's story in either Spider-Man 3 or a DLC. A lot of people are thinking that it may be more of a DLC, since Spider-Man 3 seems to be leaning more towards Norman Osborn's transformation into the Green Goblin. I mean, they could use Carnage in the DLC to go ahead and finish up with Insomniac's symbiote arc, but it could also totally be part of Spider-Man 3. I mean, Spider-Man 2 had a lot of intertwining stories going on at the same time, so they could totally throw it into there so that something with Carnage is going on at the same time as Green Goblin. Odds are though, it's probably going to be more of a DLC, so it'll be exciting to see how that goes. I like that the Flame missions ended up setting up Carnage, since he's probably my favorite symbiote in Spider-Man, probably one of my favorite Marvel villains as well, but I really didn't care for Yuri's role in it. I didn't really care for these missions outside of that in general. Besides that potential DLC with Carnage, I think a DLC with Kraven's family is pretty much all but confirmed, because while you take out those Hunter hideouts and bases, you're slowly filled in on Kraven's family drama and weird relationship with his kids, where they're trying to take over his empire, and it seems like they'll be on their way soon, and it's even mentioned that Spider-Man should finish up clearing out all of the Hunters so that these guys don't have any extra backup if they come over to New York. So there's just so many loose ends that need to be tied up, like either with DLC or a sequel. Maybe there will also be some type of filler game, like I said with Cindy Moon, maybe Cindy Moon and Miles, and maybe they'll handle one of those things, Kraven's family, Carnage, or any of those. But that's pretty much it. Don't forget to leave a like. Let me know down in the comments what you think about all of this, what you thought about Spider-Man 2 in general, and what suits you want to see in the additional updates. Maybe we'll get lucky and someone at Insomniac will see this and get some good ideas. See ya.